So finally, we get to today's webinar by Karl-Heinz Frommolt. He's the scientific head of the Animal Sound Archive and head of the Bioacoustic Laboratory. And I look forward to hearing more about the Animal Sound Archive. So thank you. And Karl, if you want to share your screen, where we can start.
Yes. Thank you, Geneva, for the introduction. I try to share the screen. I hope you can see the screen.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, then let us start. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining this talk. The aim of my talk is to briefly introduce you to the Animal Sound Archive, and I hope you can use the Sound Archive for your own research. First, I will start with the introduction of the team. We have not such a large team as, for example, the Macaulay Library at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. We are only two people. I have a technical assistant, Andreas Knensch, and myself. Shortly, an outline of the talk. I will start with the history and the development of the collection. Then I give you some introduction how you can access the recordings. And in the third part, I will speak about research projects which are going on in the Sound Archive and which are using the Sound Archive. Some words about the development of the Animal Sound Archive. The Animal Sound Archive is one of the largest sound collections of animal sounds. It was founded in 1951 by Günter Temprock at the Humboldt University of Berlin. And I have to note that the Humboldt University was a part of the Eastern Berlin. In 1983, Günter Temprock was retired, and after the changes in Germany, the decision was made that the Animal Sound Archive was transformed from the Institute of Biology of the Humboldt University to the Museum of Natural History. Yeah, let's start with the first recordings. It is the oldest recording we have on magnetic tape. It was made in October 1951 by Günter Temprock when he checked this recording device, especially built for the research group, and he could record tawny owl, which was in a cage in the garden of the Zoological Institute, and a free-flying bird joined them. Let's listen to this recording. You can hear in the background the noise of the recorder, but you can also hear that these recordings are still in a very good condition. The first subject of study, animal communication, were red foxes, which were held at the Institute, and this was one of the specifics of the sound collection. It was from the beginning on a scientific collection and always connected to the scientific research. And here we have one of the old recordings of the recording of a very young of a pup of red foxes, and the pictures very good illustrate how the working conditions were at this time. We couldn't at this time. We couldn't imagine that any digital analysis will be available in future. In short overview over a time scale, the first recordings started in 1941. At this time, we had no mobile recording devices. And of course, the first recordings were made in captivity. And beginning with the early 1960s, first wildlife recordings really in the wild were made. And as one of the results, a series of vinyl records was created. In 1967, started the series Voices of Birds of Central Europe. And this series was then followed, then later made by Schubert, one of formerly one a former employee of the Sound Archive. As I already told, the Sound Archive was always connected with scientific research, and Günter Templok was one of the pioneers in the field of bioacoustics. He was the author of the chapter of mammal acoustic communication in Büsner's book in 1931. Very important for research was the development of analysis equipment. In 1961, we could obtain a K-sonograph. And then, as I already told, in 1983, Günter Templok was retired. The development changed in the beginning of the 90s. It means when after the war broke, but it was I would say there were independent developments. At one side, we had the political development, and at the other side, in the 1990s, there was a very fast development of digital techniques. And we started in 1991 with documentation of the Sound Archive using a database. And approximately 10 years later, we started with digitization of the magnetic tapes. And I have to say that it was the right time when we started in 2004. Only at this time we had equipment to digitize magnetic tapes according to studio standards with 96 kilohertz sampling rate and 24-bit data taps. By the way, the same standard was used by the Macaulay Library at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology to digitize the sound collection. And at the same time, we started with an online database based on a MySQL database. And at this time, already sounds were accessible online. And in the following time, we had made more and more recordings accessible. And 2 years ago, we had renewed our web interface to give more opportunities for scientific research. And of course, how the collection developed up to 2002, the collection of the Animal Sound Archive consisted mainly of the recordings made by Günter Tembrox and his students, and additional some recordings were exchanged with other bioacousticians. And only one external collection was obtained. It was the collection of Hugo Meyer, an animal photographer from Saxony. The situation changed in 2002. Then we obtained a lot of external collections. Unfortunately, very often we got the collections only when the recordists already died. Here we have a list of some of the collections we obtained. I want to outline one of the collections. The collection of Hans Lütgens is a very comprehensive collection of bird and mammal sounds. I have to note that Hans Lütgens was a blind recordist as well as Thomas Brunner, and both have made a lot of recordings. Then I have to note the collection of Reinhard Schieber, very comprehensive recordings of bat recordings. And in the last years, we have digitized the original tapes of Jean-Claude Rocher. I think many of them he is known as the author of a lot of vinyl disc and audio CDs with bird and animal sounds. The focus of our recordings were mainly on Central Europe, but as you can see at this picture, the distribution of our recordings is worldwide. And of course, you can follow up the history of recording equipment. Of course, we don't have recordings of the 1887 with a very old disc shellac recordings with the gramophone developed by Emil Berlinger. But our oldest recordings are from 1911. Most of the recordings were made with magnetic tapes. This real recordings. And here you can see the development of the recording equipment. You had to start with huge equipment, very heavy equipment with a mobile recorder. And nowadays we have very small recorders, and even the recording media changed from very large one to a very small one. And now you can record hundreds of hours on a very small card in a mobile recorder. As I already told, we started in 2004 with the digitization of analog tapes. And we were very happy that we could announced in 2019 that the digitization of the holding is complete. Only new additions such as collections of John Claude Rocher waited for digitization. But complete digitization didn't mean that also audio recordings are immediately available. It means that we had a digital a copy of all of the magnetic tapes, and the task was to separate the individual recordings from the tapes. And we had a handwritten documentation of the recordings, which is also digitized and had to put the information in the database, and then made individual audio files from every recording. And here you can see how the progress of the digitization was going on. We had more than 9,000 9,000 magnetic tapes recorded, and it was a volume. Oh, sorry. More than 8,000 magnetic tapes is right. It resulted in more than 16,000 recorded files, and most recordings were made on two sides. And up to now, we have approximately 40,000 individual files, which are also. Most of them are available via the database. And here we have a picture from which date the recordings are available. And you can go back until the 1950s. In total, we have more than 8,000 real magnetic recordings, but in addition, we have also a few compact cassettes and a few digital audio tapes. And in addition to the original recordings, we have in our collection also some commercially available media. We have old shellac disc, we have a lot of vinyl disc, compact cassettes and audio CDs. And in total now approximately 50,000 files are available via the database. The oldest recording we have is from 1911. At this time, holder of birds gave access to his birds, and the shellac disc were made. Here we have a recording of a nightingale. Who is familiar with the song of the nightingale will listen that it is not a perfect recording, and at this time there were strong limitations using the gramophone technique, and the recording range was only up to 4 kilohertz. It changed in the 1930s when electric microphones were used. Okay, so far a short overview about the development and history of the sound archive, but now for you how you could access the recordings. You can access the recordings via our website. You can use animalsoundarchive.org or also the German version tierstimmenarchiv.de. And then you can click on the button to the database and can go to the database. And we have transformed our database according to according to the scientific purpose, and it is not made primarily for public use. And you can change first for the scientific name or for the common name. You can put in a three signs, and you can open such a list and select from the list. And you can also browse by systematics. You can open a systematic tree, but I wouldn't recommend you to search for the whole selection of mammals, for example, or for birds. It will take a very, very long time. And as a result of the search, you will get such a list. And you can also, when you click on the map, you can see where the recordings come from. And you can look on the details of the recordings. Here you can get information where the recording was made. You can get some additional information on the behavior of the animal as far as the animal was seen. You can see clearly the location, and you can already listen to the sound. Here we have two red foxes recorded close to Berlin. Using as a recording of sounds, you have to look on the copyright regulations. As a rule, we provide the recordings by CC by SA or CC by NC license. A lot of recordings can be used for commercial purposes, but a lot of recordings are available only for non-commercial use. How to download the recordings? You can directly download the recordings, or you can use the basket function. You can select up to 10 sound files and download the audio files at once. And when you need more, you can download another 10 recordings. And when downloading the recordings, you can select if you want the original recording. It means the WAV file in best quality, or you want to use with a compressed audio format as MP3 or as lossless FLAC format. And you can give also obtain the documentation of the recordings either as a CSV file or a JSON file. And of course, you can not only search for the scientific name of the animals, you can change for the location, can also use a map to search for locations, and can use all the additional information and include it in your search. And I can here only say, please feel free to browse the collection, download and use the recordings. Some words on research projects. Here I will give you a short insight into ongoing projects connected with the Animal Sound Archive and also give some information on projects which used the Animal Sound Archive. One of our actual projects is the long-term monitoring of the acoustic environment. One project is going on in the National Park Lower Oder Valley. We started in 2017. It means that we have now already almost 8 or more than 8 years of recordings. The first year we have recorded really every minute, and starting with the second year we are recording only only every third minute. We are using wildlife acoustics SM4 recorders. And in parallel, in our museum is a development of an algorithm for identification of bird sounds, the so-called Bird IT Europe algorithm. It is similar, very similar to the BirdNet algorithms. The algorithm is, for example, implemented in the app Naturblick. I think some of you is familiar with this app. And here we have some results from the long-term monitoring using this algorithm. We can clearly see, for example, the migration of goose during the winter time, and we can clearly see that most of the migration is in the night time. Another case is the common crane. And here we have the picture that we have the autumn migration mostly during the night time, and the bird is breeding in the area. Here we have all the recordings during the daytime when the birds are breeding. Another bird also breeding in the area is the spotted crake. It's a nocturnal bird. And another species is the thrush nightingale, Rossinia lucinia, which is also mostly active during the night, and we can clearly see the seasonal dynamics of the vocal activity. Another project we are working on is called Devise, automatic detection, localization and tracking of meadow breeders. Here we use acoustic sensor developed by the Fraunhofer Institute in Oldenburg. It's a multi-channel recorder, which also has the information on the direction of the microphones and allows for calculation of the direction from which animal is calling. It works already good for the corncrake. The corncrake is a protected and very rare species. The corncrake is breeding on meters, and the problem is that the corncrake needs meters to breed, and meters can only exist when they are mowed, but when the meters are mowed, when the birds were breeding, there will be no breeding success. Therefore, monitoring is needed to localize the birds. It is mainly made by volunteers which are recording the birds, and here we are developing technological approach to localize the birds. The advantage of the acoustic approach is that you can record every night and you can record in places where it is impossible to go during the night. And here is a result of one season of recordings, and you can clearly see that activity is in this part, most in the eastern part, and we have no activity in the western part. We have no activity in the eastern part. And the practical point is that the administration of the national park can allow the owner of the meter to use the meter, and the meter where a contract was detected will be used only later in the season for mowing as for cattle. And another project ongoing project is using bioacoustic methods for studying bioacoustic diversity in forests. Here we have long-term recorders, also the SM4 recorders on several forest sites in Germany. These sites were already used for long-term monitoring of the conditions of the forest, and the acoustic part is an addition to this project. And in the last few slides, I will show you some aspects how the Animal Sound Archive could be used from external, or is used from external users. The Animal Sound Archive can be used as a virtual repository of sounds. We have a couple of new described animals, especially of frogs, and you can listen to the sounds of these birds. And we have recordings used for scientific publications. Thus, as here, for example, we have a study of corncrakes, and here another study of the vocal communications of birds. And of course, the Animal Sound Archive is a biological collection and can be used for biologic research. Here we have one study using the collection to investigate the influence of body size on vocalization in primates and in carnivores. And a very recent aspect is the use of the collection for training algorithms for recognition of species using neural networks. And especially our holdings of bat recordings were used for training such networks. And not only biologists are interested in the collection, the Animal Sound Archive is also a source for historical studies, since you can go on into the work of biologists in the 1950s, can look at the recording equipment and can look on the techniques used for biological research. I had made in my talk the focus on the Animal Sound Archive as a scientific collection. It does not mean that the Animal Sound Archive is used only for scientific research or used only from biologists. But a very important aspect is that the Animal Sound Archive, as an open sound archive, is widely used for educational purposes. It is used in a lot of exhibitions, and you can maybe very often hear our sound recordings on some websites and so on. I hope that I could give you a short insight into the sound archive, but most important is that you will use the sound archive. Please visit the website and look, and if you have questions, I am ready to answer. Thank you for attention, and now I'm open for questions.